Hi, my name's Ronan Murdock and welcome to Leaving Cert Economics. So today we're going to look at costs. So costs have come up every year. Like if you're looking at your past paper, you've seen it every year over the last 5 years. But even like if you were to look at only, let's say, the calculations part of costs, the calculations along drawing graphs, right? So let's ignore everything else on costs, but just look at the part on costs where they're looking for the calculations and drawing graphs. It's come up every year, and it's come up for between 35 marks and 25 marks. So the least it's ever been worth in the last 5 years is 25 marks, which is 6% of your paper, and the most it's been worth was 35 marks on calculation side, and that was 9% of your grade. So you know already, like, don't be surprised you open up the paper in June, this comes up. You want to make sure you know it inside out. And quite badly answered sometimes by students because they just don't get the basics of it. So cost isn't really something you can cram overnight. You have to start practicing it now and getting used to it. So it goes without saying, obviously, to drill through all the past questions, but we're going to look at a random one here that, it isn't a past question like that, but we're just going to go down through it. So the first thing I want to make sure you guys have when you're looking at this, right, is we'll look at our fixed costs and our variable costs and what these definitions mean, right? So even the first one there, you see it's fixed cost, right? Now, imagine if I own a company, I'm making tables, right? So my fixed costs will be stuff like my rent and my manager's salary. That stays the same no matter what, okay? So set amount, that's our fixed cost. Even if I make loads of tables or don't make much, the fixed costs stay the same. So remember the definition, fixed costs, these are costs that don't change as output changed, okay? The next cost we have then we're going to look at is variable costs, okay? These are costs that change as your output changes. So the more you make, the more these variable costs will rise. So like a good example, that would be like if I'm making tables, the raw materials. So the more tables I make, the more raw materials I use, and that's going to again drive up my variable costs. Now guys, you've only got two, okay? So you've got fixed costs and variable costs. You add the two of them together, that's going to give you your total costs, okay? So you see this here, fixed costs and variable costs, that's our total costs. You can see the definition, it's so straightforward. What's the definition for total costs? Fixed costs and variable costs added together. Okay, so remember again, very, very quick summaries. Have to make sure you know it's inside out. Fixed costs, stuff like your rent, manager's salary stays the same. Variable costs, raw materials, electricity, the more you make, the more these costs will start to rise, okay? Add the two of them together, you have your total costs. The last one you need to know then for this type of question here is just going to be your marginal cost, right? Now your marginal cost, this is the increase in total cost from production of an extra unit. So like, imagine if I'm making like 4 tables and it costs me 120 quid to make 4 tables, and then I make the 5th table and it costs me 140 quid to make 5 tables. Well then the marginal cost there would be 20 euro. Okay, so to make 4 tables was 120, to make 5 tables 140, it goes up by 20, that's my marginal cost. Okay, so remember again, it's the increase in total cost from the production of an extra unit, okay? So you make 1 extra unit, how much your total cost rise by, and that's going to be your marginal cost, okay? Right, that's the start of that, and what we'll do now is we'll just jump over and look at this sort of sample thing up here, right? So this is just a random sample question, but you can see here the breakdown of what this business has. Now, what I advise you guys to do, well actually we'll run through here to start, right? So you see here first off, these are your variable costs, so as again, these are the costs that rise, your output rises. So as you start to produce more, you see these variable costs will start to creep up. Then you've got your fixed costs. Remember again, these are costs that stay the same as your output changes. Your total cost, which you see there, is your variable and fixed added together. So and the last one then you see is the marginal cost, which is the increase in total cost from the production of an extra unit. So if you can kind of break them down, know them inside out, you'll be absolutely fine. So what I need you guys to do before we start this question here is just pause the screen here and calculate these 3 things there, okay? Alright, Grant, so welcome back. We'll go through them here. So the first one there, very, very straightforward one. What's the fixed cost of 3 units? Well, stay the same no matter what. So our fixed cost of 3 units, of course, is going to be 10 euro. Fixed costs don't change no matter what. Second one then, total cost of 4 units. Okay, so remember again what the total cost is. It's fixed and variable costs added together. So let's look, if I'm going to make 4 units, my fixed cost is going to be, my variable cost will be 40, my fixed cost will be 10. I add the two of these together, that is going to give me 50 euro, and that is my total cost of making 4 units. Makes perfect sense, okay? The next one then is my marginal cost of making 2 units. Remember again, marginal cost is the increase in total cost from the production of an extra unit. So let's look at the difference. Let's look at the difference is, all right, marginal cost of making that 2nd unit. But let's see what the total cost of making 1 unit was, then look at the total cost of making 2 and see what the difference is. So we see here, the total cost of making 1 unit was 20 quid, and then the total cost of making 2 units was 27. Okay, so we see here now that our marginal cost is 7. Okay, so total cost went up from 20 to 27. The marginal cost there of making that second unit is going to be €7. Okay, brilliant. That's that done. Okay, so look over now at the next part of this question, right? And what this is what they sort of look for in higher level economics. This one, the questions get a little bit trickier, so you want to make sure you've got these things tied down. Now you see that there, you've got 3 big ones you want to have. They want to have average variable cost, average fixed cost, and average total cost. So average variable cost, that's going to be variable cost divided by a quantity, average fixed cost divided by quantity, and average total cost, that'll be a total cost divided by a quantity. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to break this chart down here, and we'll go through here. So average variable costs, average fixed costs, and then we've got our average total costs, okay? So I'll go down through these here now. So the first one there, right, let's see our average variable costs if we make 1 unit. So we're looking at that there, right, what's our variable cost? It's 10. Divide that by 1, our average variable cost here is going to be 10. So remember again the formula, guys, it's going to be, for the formula for average variable cost, it's just variable cost divided by our quantity. So what's the average variable cost of making 1 unit? Variable cost is 10, divided by 1, that's going to give you €10. Next thing then, what's the average variable cost of making 2 units? Remember again the formula, it's variable cost divided by the quantity. So 17 divided by 2, that will give me 850. Alright, and so on, you get the idea. So variable cost 25 divided by 3, that's going to give you 833. Okay, I'll say nothing, you guys do the next 3 there, go for it there. I'll just keep drilling through them here. Okay, that's fine, so just maybe let's do the average variable cost of making 5 units. What's the variable cost of making 5? It's 65. Divide that by the 5. That gives us our 13 there. Okay, brilliant. We'll look over now at the next one. What's our average fixed cost? Okay, so remember again, your average fixed cost. This is always going to be dropping. It's always going to keep getting less and less and less the more you make. Because remember, guys, fixed costs will start to fall as you start to produce more units. So what we see here is average fixed cost. You make 1 unit is going to be 10. Okay, so remember again, fixed cost is €10. Divide that by 1, it's 10. Now, what's the average fixed cost if you make 2 units? Fixed cost is 10, divide that by 2, that gives you the €5 there. Now guys, I know this is going to keep getting lower as I go down, okay? Your average fixed cost will always be declining, okay? So you're going down through it there. You can just drill through this here. So remember again, what's the average fixed cost of making 3 units? 10 divided by 3 will give me 333. What's the average fixed cost of making 4 units? 10 divided by 4 gives us 250. Average fixed cost of making 5 units, 10 divided by 5 gives you 2. And then last one there, average fixed cost of making 6 units, 167 there. That's grand. Okay, so you have that tied down, that's all right. Okay, now this is the big thing, right? So remember again, we saw earlier, right? You've got your fixed costs and variable costs will give you your total costs, okay? This exact same thing here, right? If you're following up here, average variable cost and average fixed costs add together, it gives us our average total cost, okay? And so we see here, we add these two up together, we have 20, right? Now how can I double check that that's right? Well, let's just think about it, okay? It's your average total cost. What's the average total cost of making 1 unit? So, well, my total cost of making 1 unit is 20, divide that by 1, 20 divided by 1, €20. Okay, so remember our formula, right? So remember the formula for average total cost, it's your total cost divided by your quantity sold. So let's pick a random one. Let's just look at number 4 here, right? What's the total cost there of making 4 units? It's €50. So let's find out what's the average total cost of making 4 units, okay? So €50 divided by 4, 50 divided by 4 gives me $12.50, all right? How can I know that I'm right for sure? Well, I'll add up my average variable cost, which is tenner, add up my average fixed cost, $2.50, and that makes my $12.50 there. We'll do one last one again. What's the average cost of making 6 units, okay? So, it's the average total cost, I should say, of making 6 units. 130 divided by 6, if you add that in your calculator, 130 divided by 6, the answer that's going to pop up is 2167. Okay, and again, of course, guys, you add these two up together, and that's what we have there as well. Okay, so that's our split there. So 20 plus 167, you have that there. So I'll go through here, you know, just to okay, so that's our split there of those questions. Okay, now one little quick thing here. Yeah, what I'm going to do now is just I'm going to rub out. So I'm going to rub out 4 of these now, and I'll leave you guys to work that out. Okay, just a little test for yourselves. Okay, so if you guys, just you guys follow me over here. This is your job here now. Okay, so again, just have a look at these questions here. You've got your formulas here, and the question now is calculate the average total cost of 4 units, average variable cost of 3 units, average variable cost of 5 units, and average variable cost of 6 units. Okay, so you can, if you want to, we can just have a quick look up at the screen here, and you guys can you can pause there if you want on the screen where you've got the numbers, and look, either way we'll just jump into it right away now. Okay, so you guys are following me here, but if you want to give it a quick pause there and do it yourself, that's what I do. It's a good move. So let's look at it here again. First one there, average total cost of making 4 units. Right, what's our formula? It's total cost divided by our quantity. Okay, so if I'm looking over there at my total costs of making 4 units, the total cost is 50 and the quantity is going to be 4. So again, my average total cost of making 4 units will be $12.50. Okay, that's that. Next one then, average variable cost of making 3 units. So we see it there again. We've got our average variable, our variable cost divided by quantity. So what's the variable cost of making 3 units? It's going to be 25. Divide that by 3. So the average variable cost of making 3 units there, so 25 divided by 3, that's going to give us 833. Perfect. So actually, sorry, it's going to give us, 833, that's fine. The next one then, if you guys are looking out for it there, is the average fixed cost of making 5 units. So average fixed cost of 5 units, it's going to be, so we got our formula there, fixed cost divided by quantity. Fixed cost, there you have it, it's our fixed cost is 10 divided by 5, so it's our €2. And then the average variable cost of making 6 units. Okay, so what's the variable cost of making 6 units? 120, divide that by 6, and that's going to give you €20, and that's going to be the correct answer there. Okay, so that's like those blanks there. We're going to jump over here again and fill in the blanks from where we were. So we had the first one there, the average total cost of 4 units, and that there gave us $12.50. Perfect. Next one then, average variable cost of making 3 units, variable cost divided that by 3, 833. Perfect. Then the next one we have there was the average fixed cost of 5 units. That was 2. And then the last one then, of course, the average variable cost of making 6 units, 20 quid. Okay, brilliant. Right, that's sort of that stuff out of the way now, right? What I want us to do now is actually look at this. The reason if you can't really start in the market structures questions without sort of practicing these sort of questions here. So what I do now, if I was in your position, is actually like a big question I'd like to ask is actually draw this on a graph, right? So if you guys want to follow me over here, we'll just go over to the third board there. We'll have a look at this question here. So what I've done already, just to kind of keep it, to save you time and stuff like that, is I've kind of mapped in all the dots here together and stuff, right? But like when I was doing this, it wasn't that a big mistake students will make is when they're drawing these graphs, they won't use a ruler, they won't properly lay it out, and you really need to take your time. So what we're doing here is, the question here is going to be that we label our marginal costs and our average costs onto the same chart. So you've got like your marginal cost curve and your average cost curve here. So the reason I want you to do this is that like, this boils back down to the basics of your market structures questions. Students don't really do quite well on, right? So like if you're ever drawn your market structures question, they've asked you before, they've said explain the relationship between the marginal cost curve and the average cost curve. Now when you're drawing it like that, that's the way I always do it. So like when the marginal cost curve is below the average cost curve, it pulls the average cost curve down. When marginal cost above the average cost curve, it pulls the average cost curve back up, right? But that's the sort of stuff there. But like, and then when you're doing market structures, like you'll suddenly notice that students will might struggle. They might know the basics here. And if you're doing any of your graphs, let's say, sometimes you'd see it here, and the students might draw something like this. They might go mark the marginal cost curve like that, and then they might do the average cost curve here. Remember again, when you're doing these curves, the average cost curve needs to intersect the marginal cost at its lowest point. So you can see the way there, that's not the lowest point, so the way the curve keeps falling down. If you do that in your leaving cert, you'll get the graph wrong, okay? So it's like, and then of course the basic question students will have a lot of times, they'll be like, right, why is that the case? Well, we're gonna look at it now, right? So let's illustrate this information, like the question we just did there on the board. So remember again, when I was using this, I kind of prepped this in advance because it take ages, so I used a ruler obviously when I was laying this out. And you want to make sure in the leaving cert you get these sort of graph questions, you use the rulers, right? 4 times out of the last 5 years, they've looked for you to draw a graph, okay? And just make sure you get the basics with it right. So what I was doing there is I was getting the marginal cost and the average cost information, right? So we'll fire this down now on the curve. If you don't mind following me over here for 1 second, I'll just show you here quickly, guys. So see this here? It's this information, our marginal costs, and it's going to be our average cost, right? So we'll split this information out into a graph, right? So that's the information I have there, and of course our quantity, right? So make sure we'll just basically we'll get all this information in here, right? So what you guys have here is what I've done now is already I've joined together the dots. So if you're looking at there, like even on the chart, the earlier chart there, like the first curve I'll do here is going to be our marginal cost curve, and I've labelled this here in blue, the blue dots. So if you see here, like the marginal cost of making 1 unit, all right, was €10. Okay, then the marginal cost of making the second unit drops down to 7. The marginal cost of making the third unit goes up to 8.50. The marginal cost of making the fourth unit, the marginal cost of making the fourth unit, goes up to 15. It's following here on the board. Marginal cost of making the fourth unit goes up to 15. Then we see the marginal cost of making that fifth unit is going to go up to 25. See right here, it's all in line, like 15 over here, they're all in line. And then the last one, then you see the marginal cost of making the sixth unit is going to go up as high as 55. All right. Now that's basically like the rough layout of what you see at the graph, but that's the way your marginal cost curve is going to go up. Okay, downward sloping, and then it starts to climb back up. Now what we see here again, then is the average cost curve in the middle. All right. So again, if you draw the average cost curve, the average cost of making 1 unit is 20. The average cost of making 2 units is $13.50, so you join that in. The average cost of making 3 units is going to be $11.66. The average cost of making 4 units, you can see that there, it's $12.50. It starts to climb back a little bit up now. The average cost then of making 5 units is going to be 15. And you guys can see it there, and that's the way the curves join. Okay. So you guys have seen that in the leaving cert, that's what they're going to be looking for you guys to draw. So like you see the way typically, like see the way curves drop down, where they meet, you can see that there it's at its lowest, and that's the way they want you guys to draw that in your leaving cert. Okay, so like that's, when I'm labeling that in there, that's going to be a marginal cost curve, and that there is going to be my average cost curve. Okay, but again, going back to it, if I was doing that in the leaving cert, remember again, if I was starting off, you know, in market structures question, like I got a price by quantity here, and that's my marginal cost curve, and then I'd have my average cost curve. Alright, but the average cost curve will always mean it's lows, and that's the reason the average cost curve is going to be shaped like that. But just sort of get into the habit of that and make sure you've got those things right. And look, we'll draw more of them in a bit more detail later on, but that's the basics of what they want you guys to understand. Okay, thanks.